Happy Friday, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. Happy Friday. I am Dr. Nika White. I am the host of Intentional Conversations podcast, also the founder and lead principal consultant for NWC. And we're so glad you're here. We've been expecting you as we do every single week during this hour. And we do not take it lightly that you find it fit to spend this time with us. It is because of our community that we are able to bring this live virtual learning experience to the broader community so that we can learn with and from each other. And we are delighted. I want you to take a moment, please, as we're continuing to get settled into this virtual learning space and just go to the chat. Let us know where you are joining the conversation from today. It is always a treat for us to see the many different geographies that are represented and to also welcome newcomers to our community. So let us know in the chat. I also want to shout out those who are joining us live on LinkedIn. There are many of you who will register and will have this date and time protected on your calendar to where you will be a part of our Zoom community. But then there are others who catch the show by going to LinkedIn and joining us LinkedIn Live there. And so we are watching the comment section of LinkedIn Live very carefully. My team is bringing those sentiments, your reactions, your questions, your comments over into the Zoom chat so that we all can be connected. And if you feel inclined to connect with this community beyond this hour, then I also encourage you to share your LinkedIn information. That is always a treat for us as well. My team will place my LinkedIn information into the chat for those of you who may not already be connected with. And I look forward to connecting with you there. I also want you to know that at Intentional Conversations podcast, we really do believe in disability inclusion. And as such, we have the closed caption that has been enabled for those who will find that as a way to enhance your experience today. And so sit back, relax, and enjoy today's show. Can't wait for you to meet our guest co-host. And once again, welcome to Intentional Conversations podcast. Let the conversations begin indeed, and that is precisely what we're about to do. If you're just tuning in, you have joined Intentional Conversations podcast. We also extract the audio. We make it available in podcast capacity for wherever you like to get your podcast content. So many ways for you to be able to be connected to this community. One of the things that I love to do at the top of the hour is just bring to our acknowledgement the national observances that are taking place throughout the month. And we are in the month of September, and National Hispanic Heritage Month starts on the 15th of the month and it runs through the 15th of October. So I want to make sure that you are doing all that you can to stand in solidarity and support of those who are part of Hispanic heritage, and make sure that we are being allies and we are acknowledging and appreciating the wonderful contributions that they're making to our broad society. I also want you to know that the month of September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And if you've been with us for quite some time, you know that I often speak about mental strength, mental health. We need to break the stigma. And part of breaking the stigma is also going to help us to address the suicide rate that we're seeing that is really alarming these days. And so make sure you're talking about it, not just this month, once October rolls around, once November, December, all throughout the year, because I think that we can certainly help break the stigma if we are much more comfortable speaking on this topic and being of support and standing in solidarity with those that may need our support. If you have been a part of our podcasts of the past couple of months, you know that we've been talking a lot about this new initiative called Boundless. It is a women of color community of well-being, empowerment, and leadership, and we are well underway. We have a tremendous group of amazing women that have connected to the Boundless community, and we are having group coaching sessions, we're having master classes, lots of great support that's taking place. If you are interested in joining this evergreen program, then you can do so. You can simply just scan the QR code. We will also place the link to the landing page into the chat, and we look forward to having conversations with you, including even perhaps joining our discovery call, which takes place next on September 26th. We'd love to have you, so let us know if that's of interest. We can explore further if Boundless would be a good home for you. Now, one of the things that we have been communicating this month is that we will be sunsetting intentional conversations, at least the way that we all have known it for the past 5 years, at the end of this month. We have had over 240 episodes, and our final intentional conversations will be next Friday. We certainly would love for you to join us, where Julia Stam will be our guest co host. A small word that I want to say about intentional conversations and all that we've been able to accomplish over the past 5 years. It is no small feat to get a vodcast podcast to 5 years. We certainly recognize that. And we also recognize we would not be able to do that if it weren't for the support of our community. So thank you for showing up. This has been a tremendous learning experience. And while we are saying goodbye to the ending of intentional conversations as we know it, what I want to make sure that I amplify is that our commitment to bringing voices that can help us as we are just intersecting conversations about really important topics is not wavering at all. In fact, we just want to do a refresh. We want to find new and additional ways as we continue to evolve in this season to bring great conversations to our broad community. And so stay tuned for more news as to what that's going to look like in the future. But for now, thank you so much for being a part of Intentional Conversations. Now, it does me great pleasure to be able to provide the formal introduction of today's guest co host. And she is not a stranger at all to Intentional Conversations. She is a friend, she is a colleague, and she has been on this show before, actually a couple of years back. But I'm so excited to have her join us today. And you all know the drill. I always find it appropriate to read the person's bio because it gives me a chance to amplify the accolades, the experiences, the credentials in which our guest co hosts show up to the conversation with. And that's important to me because I want you to recognize the credence in which they have the authority to speak on all the things that we're going to delve into in just a moment. So, Jenn Tardy is the CEO and founder of the Maryland based firm called Jennifer Tardy Consulting, Team JTC for short. Renowned for career success, coaching, and diversity recruiting, Jenn connects job seekers with hiring professionals, driving success for both. Her work with SHRM, Red Bull, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and Harvard University, along with accolades like 2020 LinkedIn Top Voice, showcases her dedication to increasing diversity and retention without harm. With 14 years of experience, she aims to universalize lived experience intelligence and redefine diversity recruiting. Jenn is currently writing a book with Hatchet Books. And I think this is actually, because she has a book that's out now. We're going to talk about it. It's called The Equity Edge. So, what I would like to do now is let me stop sharing my screen and I'm going to bring my friend into the spotlight. And I want you all to find those words of affirmation, find those emojis, those reactions, all the things, right? To let my friend know how much we appreciate her being here with us today. But before I get too far ahead, Jenn, you may recall this from before, but we do have a tradition. And that tradition is before we release our guest co host to greet the audience in their own way, we always ask for them to consider sharing something with us that we would not know from hearing your bio, which we've just done, of course, or from looking at your LinkedIn profile. And honey, because you are a LinkedIn top voice, you share a lot out there, you have a lot of followers. This may be a bit of a task for you, but that's okay. I have great faith in you, friend. Welcome. So glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. And I think this is my third time. I don't know if it's my third or my fourth time. You have been so gracious with your platform. I appreciate it, and I'm happy to be back in the room. So something about me. So I have two sons, 8 and 9. They're actually about to be 9 and 10 in the next few weeks, and I'm just now entering a season of my life where investing is becoming really important to me. Not specifically for me, even though it is important for me, I'm very intentional about setting my sons up for success. So everything that I'm learning about today, that I'm forcing myself to learn about, is all about how do I set them up so by the time they're 18 or 21, they have a better leap on life than I had at that age. So
I
that's
love it. I
yeah.
love it. That is so important, and so I'm so glad that you're thinking along those lines. I'm so glad that you are socializing around your intentions because I think that it gives other people permission and the ability, if it's not on their radar, to start thinking along those lines as well. Especially
Yeah.
for people that look like you and me, Jen
That's
Tardy,
right. That's
because
right.
sometimes we find ourselves not in positions to be able to to set our kids, our seed up for success in ways that a lot of families that don't look like us can. And I
Right.
think that it's not because we don't have the ability, it's because maybe it's not something we've been exposed to. So talking about it, I think, is huge. And I am totally right there with you.
Because with your son and daughter, you do a lot of family meetings
We
around finances.
do.
I don't know
We
if people know that, but
do.
that inspires me too, Nika. So let's be
Well,
clear.
thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, and I will have to say that my husband, since the kids were like really, really little, and for those of you who don't know, my kids are like 24, 25 now. They're not kids, but they'll always be my babies. And so anyway, so they are fully adulting on their own. But yes, as young kids, they were very much a part of family conversations around investing, around saving, around what we were doing with our money. That was
Yeah,
something that we always wanted to expose them to, and it is starting to serve us incredibly well. And I even think about the role that entrepreneurship has played for allowing my family to be able to create wealth and to teach about wealth creation. That's been really, really big for us. And we also have, through my husband's leadership, a program where he leads other families, other couples through the same type of mindset. I mean, we have family board meetings where literally we all still come together, the four of us,
I
and we
love
have
it.
an agenda and we talk about, we talk about all of these things. And so, but I think that's critically, critically important. And so, but yeah,
Yeah,
but thank you for giving me
yeah,
a chance to kind of put
absolutely.
that out there into the universe.
Absolutely. Somebody told me once, not to keep us off subject, but somebody told me once the fact that I'm an entrepreneur and their father's an entrepreneur, their view on life will never be the same.
Oh, I believe that. And I see it deeply with both of my kids. And so for those of you who don't know, my daughter works in the business with me. Well, she works in the family businesses, let me say. She works in my business, she works in our holding company, she works in my husband's, transportation logistics company. But when she finished her master's degree and she decided, well, she went to London School of Economics and then she decided she wanted to spend a year abroad. When she came back, she had all these great opportunities and she said, no, I can go and spend my time, my talents, my treasures, and all these other organizations helping them to build their enterprises. But she said, I want to build my family's enterprise. I want to help build that. And
I want
that
my sons to do
just,
that. That is the best compliment. I want my sons. I'm not going to hold them, but I would love for them to want to. I would love to build something where they would want to come back and do it. So I'm tracking. It's
and
beautiful.
yeah, it really is. It is a gift, and I feel very privileged that my kids have been exposed to that way of life because they know that it's also something that is in should be in their consideration set. And my son just recently moved back to South Carolina from Tennessee when he was there for a bit while working, and now he is working in the family businesses, and so it's a beautiful thing, and we're
Yeah.
grateful.
Oh,
Nonetheless, again, just thank you for that moment. I appreciate that. Thank you.
yes,
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
absolutely.
So you have had a lot going on. I want to first and foremost get to this book that was released, and I have my copy. I'm looking around because I am so horrible about when I show up to intentional conversations, not having the copy in my hands to kind of do a show and
So
tell.
good.
But trust us, you know that I have the book.
I do. I do.
And
I do.
I'm so excited for you. This is your first book, if I'm not mistaken, right?
My first traditionally published book, yes.
First
So yeah,
published. I
and
think
that
all books count. So even if it's not, traditionally published, we're going to
I
count those.
1000%, 1000%. So with his shed, so I'm very excited about this right here, the equity edge, how addressing bias in recruiting and retention drives success. So yes.
Yes, 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 yes. And so I have been following your career for quite some time. You and I both have been, following each other on social media. We had a chance to meet in real life before, and there's just been a great level of support. I remember you were so gracious to send an opportunity for me to be a part of the conference that you did. And so,
Yeah.
anyway, a lot has happened. And thank you for reminding me that you haven't just been on once, you've been on more than once. And I forgot about that. And I think that you are the only one, Jennifer, that has been on an intentional conversations more than twice. The only one. The only one.
I'm always like, Nika, 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 Nika.
No,
And you're
no,
like,
no,
just
no,
bring
no.
her in here.
No, not at all. It's
Well,
not
thank
because
you. Thank
it's not
you.
because you're pushing yourself on me. It's because you bring such great value. And so it's
I
always
appreciate that.
an easy way to be able to make sure that we're delivering value to our community.
Yeah.
And so, no, it is all good.
Thank you.
But nonetheless, a lot has happened since the last time that you were on here. So I would love for you to take us a little bit through that journey, but then specifically, I want to know what was the impetus for you saying, okay, Equity Edge, I got to get it into the world. I got to get it into the universe. And what has been the experience so far in terms of how people have responded to it, how people are being able to use it as a tool? And
Yeah.
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. For me, it felt like this was the right time. So we have a few training programs out there specifically for recruiters and for hiring managers, and it's a lot of information. And I wanted to find a way to do a few things at once, meaning I wanted to find a way, how do you condense this training for recruiters or hiring leaders in a way that's easily digestible? Number two, how do I also educate the job seeker at the same time? And
Yep.
number three, how do I also humanize this experience? How do I begin to infuse my stories within it as well, and other people's stories? Because I think that's what's been missing in this whole world of recruiting and increasing diversity, how to make it human because it's become so technical. Do this, do this, do this, do this. But it's like, hey, let's think about the human that's behind here and that's experiencing this. So I'll tell stories in the book about, like my father, for example. One of the reason why I'm in this work of leveling the playing field is because I saw what it did to my father when the playing field wasn't level for him. How my father worked at the same company for 30 years, and in his last few years, I don't know, his last few decade or so, he was a supervisor. But he could never move beyond being a supervisor because they would always tell him he didn't have a degree. However, they would always come to him to
Mhm.
help fix all of these senior level issues constantly. And so I think about, and I remember asking my dad, and I talk about this in the book as well. I remember asking my dad when I was like 18 years old, I was like, oh, you worked there for 30 years. You must have loved your job, right? And he was like, no, I hated it. And I was like, well, why on earth would you stay at a job for 30 years that you hated? And for him, it was to create stability in our home. And it
Yeah.
even makes me emotional thinking about that. And so, like, this is my way, this work is my way of honoring him. And this book is my way of condensing all of those stories and making it more human and personal here.
So much to unpack here. What a beautiful story.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing. And I see why it can certainly elicit emotions as you think about
yeah,
that. There are so many people who have a similar story to your dad, to where they spend decades in
yeah,
jobs that they dislike,
yeah, yeah,
and that are hard. But they do it because it feels very obligatory. It feels
yeah,
like this is the sacrifice that I have to make in order to create that stability for a family. And so I can understand how that really inspired your pathway and wanting to give people at least broader exposure to, no, this is not necessarily the fate that you have to like lean into just because
yes,
you don't have a
yes,
degree or you don't have XYZ, right? And so I love the work that you're
yes,
doing. And let me say this too, Jen. You mentioned that you saw that humanity was missing from the recruiting process that felt, in the job seeking process that feels so transactional often, and it often feels very technical. Do this, do this, do this. I
yeah,
will venture to say that humanity is missing from so many different workplace, corporate America
yeah,
type of scenarios, which is
yeah,
why I think that we're finding a lot of people like you and I are starting to amplify this notion of we need to humanize how we work, how we live, how we show up, period.
yeah,
And so I
yeah.
think that is so beautiful to the work that you do. And then lastly, I have to share this because you have already introduced the relationship that you have with your dad. One of the most impressionable things, I follow all of your work, of course, but one of the most impressionable stories that you've shared. Oh,
Uh-oh.
and you,
Uh-oh.
Mm, was when you shared the story through video of how your dad sold the truck that he
Oh, you
absolutely.
saw the video.
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I
Mm,
did. And I have chill bumps, but you told this story so beautifully. But the story was that your dad had sold his truck that he loved.
yeah,
And it was because, again, at that mindset of you sacrifice, you do what you have to do for stability of your family, and
yeah.
how the opportunity that you leaned into when you saw that you could get that truck back for your dad and present
Gosh,
that to him. Yes, no.
why did you do this? Why
I'm
are you doing
sorry.
this?
And
But yes,
I, when I saw that video, and I
yeah,
just thought to
yeah,
myself, oh,
yeah,
goodness, what a
yeah,
legacy that your dad has been able to pass along to
Yeah.
you in a way, and what a beautiful way to honor him and his sacrifice. Yes, I cried when I saw it, sis. It was beautiful. It was
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you. So so when I was like 12, 13 years old, for those of you who have not seen the video, my dad had bought a truck and he loved this truck. And he doesn't ask for a lot, but he realized he was in over his head and he had to give the truck. We had to send the truck back. And I said when my dad turned 65, I bought him a truck for his birthday and I surprised him. And my dad, I don't see him cry often. But the way that he cried when I opened the door and I was like, "There it is for you," and he sat down on the couch and he cried, and then he was like, "That's for me, Jen." I was like, "Dad, and nobody can take this away from you." Oh, Nika! I was like, "Nobody can take this away." I mean, but this is what we're working so hard for. Like
Yes.
it's these moments in our life where we're able to say, because I tell people all the time that I hit the lottery with the fact that my parents were responsible. We didn't have a lot of money, there weren't a lot of opportunities, but the fact that my parents were responsible, that's where I hit the lottery. And
Yeah.
I'm a lucky girl for that.
No, absolutely, absolutely. No, I'm so glad that I was able to bring that story and for you to bring it full circle to this community because it was so impressionable to me. And I think that it places us back to where we started as we were talking about what we see from our parents is
Yeah,
definitely something that is being instilled in us. And then our seeds also have the benefit of it. So again,
yeah,
that lineage, that history, all of that, we cannot take it for granted at all. And so
yeah.
I love that
And
for you.
even, and thank you. And even when you're talking about recruiting, one of the ways in which I humanize this is that I remind recruiters that it's not just about that salary or that offer that we're giving them. I want you to think about it as the money that goes in a person's pocket is the money that goes into their home. The money that goes into their home, it feeds their community, it feeds the economy. And it's like it's not just thinking about, oh, what is this person going to earn right here? It's a whole direct connection with these
Right.
downstream implications that, and money, whether we like it or not, it gives you access to people, places, and things. And so some people have access to and some people don't have access to, which leads to your lived experiences and stuff. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
So we're going to talk about lived experience, and of course, you have this great framework and something that you've even trademarked. And I remember we talked about this the last time that you were on. I want to kind of
Yeah.
see how it's going and what impact has been created there. But before we even go there, I
Mhm.
want to stay on this point about job seekers and the importance of being employed and the importance of being able to contribute not only for stability of our families, but then also our communities, the local economy. And we are at, oh, I'm going to say interesting place right now when we
Mm.
think about the hundreds of thousands of Black women that have been pushed out of employment, while at the same time, employment for white men has increased. And it is alarming, so much so to where not only is it alarming because it really sheds a light on how society views the Black woman, but it also is alarming because I don't think that people are clearly connecting the dots to the implications of the overall economics that are being compromised because of the large percentage of Black women that are being displaced. And I want us to talk about that. I feel like it's too important of a conversation to not bring to this dialogue regarding, equity. So what are you seeing? What are you hearing? And how have you been processing this news?
So, my mind is going in a lot of different places. One of the things that I first thought about as you started seeing changes with workplaces and how they're valuing DEI programs, I started thinking about how many people of color, women of color, Black women, are in those roles, and how just by a complete change of how we think about diversity, equity, inclusion in our workplace, it can wipe out a lot of positions and displace a lot of individuals as well too. I think about a lot of the businesses out there that are Black woman owned that may even be connected to this world of work as well too, and how it's displacing a lot of their money. I'm also thinking too about the invisible work that a lot of us take on in the workplace as well too, and how we're holding up a lot of places, a lot of departments, but because it's invisible work, there's really no one's looking at it as I'm going to translate this into value and how this will add to where you go next within the organization. It's very frustrating. I am still hopeful as I see women who are pivoting and finding new opportunities or new creative ways to be able to get money. I'm actually going to a conference this weekend called Black Women Invest, where they're teaching women how to invest their money so that they can depend on themselves versus depending on other employers as well too. So I have a lot of thoughts around it. It's very unfortunate, but I'm still very hopeful because one thing that we are is a very resilient people, and we'll find ways.
Yeah, yeah, I love your optimism there. And to your point, we are finding that a number of Black women who have been displaced from their jobs are now turning to entrepreneurship. What has
Yeah,
also been elevated to the conversation, though, is while that is a pathway that could very much lead to success, you and I can attest to that. It also does not come with concern around will capital be
yep,
accessible to them? Will
yep,
visibility, will networks of
yep.
information be accessible to them so that they can be successful as entrepreneurs? And so, and when I engage in conversations like this, while at some points within that cycle it gives me hope, it also breeds a lot of curiosity because those questions pop up for me, and then it also can create a little bit of anxiety around, okay, so if this is now the survival, okay, I'm not being able to get a job and to keep my job to be compensated fairly, but if I go into entrepreneurship, there's still systems that may not allow me to be set up for success. And so I mean, honestly, my heart goes out. I am hoping that with some of the changes we have seen, where a lot of the venture capital opportunities for Black women, women of color in general, just to be able to get a leg up as they are establishing businesses, that we're going to be able to have some creative problem solving in that regard because we know that a lot of those opportunities have been cut off. It is heavy right now in so
I
many
know,
regards.
I
It
know,
is.
I know. It's a
Yeah.
lot. It's a lot, and again, I am still the ultimate optimist as well too. And one of the things that I do like to say as well, I know we're going to talk about lived experience intelligence later, but because we've always had to navigate these systems, it's what creates that innovation. We've always had to find different ways, more innovative ways of going in the same direction that some people can take a straight line to go through, but
Totally.
it makes us that much better. I wish I could find this article, and I was saying this on a different podcast a couple of weeks ago, but there was this article that was talking about some data around um, going from being in the management level to being more of the executive level, and why
Mhm.
executives who are executives of color, they could have been talking about Black people, but I think they were talking about people of color. Why are they
Mhm.
why do they find more success than their white counterparts when they become executives? What is it within it? And it's because they found that they've been held at the management level a lot longer than their white
Mhm.
counterparts. And so because they've been held at that level a lot longer, they've been able to hone those skills a lot better that by the time they get into the executive ranks, they propel. And so I look at it in that way as well too, that I hate that systematically they're being held back, but then their ability to, once they cross over or break that ceiling, they propel even faster. So I wish I could find the article. I'm gonna keep looking. If anybody in your audience knows it, please send that my way.
Yeah, I'm intrigued now because I had
Yeah.
not heard that type of stat or context around maybe the reason that there's always this lengthier period of time before, people of color are able to ascend into those even more executive level roles. I mean, so yeah, talk about silver lining. You definitely have found it. Definitely
You
compounded.
have to, I'll lose my mind. Right.
So listen, sis, I am in favor of keeping hope and optimism. But I will name this though, even if that is, part of the reason that once they get to that next level, they are able to excel and do incredibly well because they've mastered it, because they've had more time to master it because they've been
Yes.
stuck there for so long, even
Yes.
as unfortunate as that may be. I wonder, and this is just me thinking, but I wonder, Jen, what are the implications
Yeah.
when you get to that point where you've been a manager for so long, right? And you have honed all those skills and you're doing it like the back of your hand. I think that also can breed this level of comfort. I'm comfortable here because I know it, you know? And
Yeah.
only reason this is coming up for me is just as recent as yesterday. I remember having a conversation with a friend who was in a high level role with a, large national brand. And she's been reached, out to by recruiters. And I kind of said to her, are you talking this way because you're feeling really comfortable where you are? And you're afraid of, like, that change and that it's going to feel like you're having to maybe start over or that learning curve? And she was like deer in the headlights. She said, you know what? I think there's some merit to that and I need to unpack it.
Mm.
So anyway, that is why this is top of mind. But I do wonder if one of the negative consequences, again, you're looking at the silver lining. I don't want to sound
That's
like a
you.
pessimist, but I am
No.
just curious. I'm curious if what is also happening is that, as an unintended consequence or a consequence that people are not really paying attention to, is that even though they may stay at that manager level for so long to where they get all the things that they need, that they can excel pretty quickly once they get to the next level. Sometimes I think it may take people being nudged and nurtured in order for them to even feel like, yes, I do want to now have this new learning curve, or to, because I'm comfortable. I don't know what it's going to look like there.
Oh, you just gave me goosebumps when you say this because when I'm coaching job seekers, and I talk about it in the book as well, people may think that job seekers are on the market or on the job. Well, we'll call them job seekers, but they may think that, oh, they're actively looking for a job, and then I'll tell them that most of the people who come to me, it's because they need my help making them active, right?
Yes,
Because if you've been in a position and you think about systems from a recruiting perspective and bias, oftentimes you'll hear messages like, "Oh, you're not ready yet," or "There's something that's not quite there for you to be at the next
right.
level." And so sometimes, and I tell people, if you stay at a job, stay in a toxic environment or an environment that doesn't value you long enough, you have to be careful because then you'll start to believe some of those things yourself.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so by the time they're coming to us, we have to help them become active because they've grown, to your point, more comfortable with where they are today, because they're like, okay, well, they keep saying that I'm not ready, and sometimes it's not. Many times it's not you, it's the environment that you're within. Have you ever noticed that you can have a person, an employee, who may not do well under one manager, and their performance reviews may not be well under one manager, but you take that same person and put them under another manager and they excel. And we have to be
100%.
we have to begin to really sift through, is it the person or is it the environment that they're within? And so
Absolutely.
that's a
Absolutely.
big
Not
deal.
all managers, people leaders are created equally, and not all
Unfortunately.
organizations care enough about putting some level of standard around what needs to be non-negotiables, in
Yeah.
terms of how leaders are showing up for their people, to be able to create an environment, that where everyone can thrive. And so I think that is such astute commentary. And to your point, I think that the best example of this is Black women are, this is a fact, are the most educated, but
Mhm.
yet still we are the ones who are being kicked out. And so it goes back to what you said. I think that what finds its way into the systems, all those limiting beliefs that come upon us because of what we've
Yeah.
heard, how we've been treated,
Yeah.
how our qualifications have been questioned,
Yeah.
um, that plays a role in it. Even though we are the most educated, that plays a role in it.
And we take that, and when we off ramp out of the workplace, we take that into our entrepreneurial ventures as well. And we start pricing ourselves too low
Yes.
because we're
Yes.
like, we'd be lucky to get a client. No, they'd be lucky to have your brain power. And I have to remind people, you have such a beautiful brain and you have such, quality value services and products to offer people. But because you've been in this environment for so long that tells you that you aren't enough, at some point you've started to believe that, and now it's sifting. So and now you're sort of seeing that in this space. You have to begin to chisel that layer of rock so that you can really be who you genuinely were meant to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
takes a lot.
It takes a lot.
It takes a lot.
That work needs to be continual. It's not like just a one and
Oh,
done. Okay, I've chiseled and now I'm good. Oh, you got chiseling along the way.
yes, because there's so much conditioning that,
Yeah.
workplace aside, there's so much conditioning that we're constantly, understanding and identifying, number one, and then trying to navigate our way through. And it's not the same for everybody. There's
No.
conditioning, but let me just use me for example. There's conditioning with being Black and being marginalized. There's conditioning with being a woman and being marginalized. There's so much conditioning from so many different places. And even me today, as an entrepreneur, there's still places where I'm like, well, why am I feeling, discouraged about this? Oh, it's conditioning, and then I have to work my way through it. Huh?
100%. It doesn't matter whether we're an entrepreneur, whether we're the employee. I mean, it's almost like we can't escape it, which is why it is such a big conversation that we have to continue to have.
Yeah.
Okay, and by the way, y'all, we have not even hit question one yet. This is how Jen and I flow. This is how
Look,
we flow.
Nika, they're lucky we're behaving and not talking about our locks right now.
That's usually the extent of our conversations. Yes. By the way, I'm still so envious of how beautiful your locks are. Still.
I
You were
meant to
one of
give
my
you yours.
inspirations when I took that jump.
And your locks look amazing every
Oh,
time I
thank
see them.
you.
I remember when you were thinking about the
Yeah.
process. So kudos.
Yeah. Thank you, sis. Okay, so I've
Mhm.
teased this a couple times. We have to get to it. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
LEQ,
Yes.
lived
Yes.
experience intelligence. When you first dropped this on me, and I was like, this is brilliant, sis. Thought this is what's missing from the conversation of how in which we can really center humanity and to help people to understand that there is power in difference. And so, because I mean, yeah. So anyway, tell the audience what is LEQ? What was the
Yeah.
inspiration behind it? And how are you seeing now that it's been out into the universe for quite some time? It is
Yeah.
shaping workplaces and leaders' mindsets.
Oh, okay. So I am that person that I ask questions. So have you ever been in groups before where people are like, oh, I didn't want to ask that question because I feel like it's a dumb question. I'm not that person. I will say, please may I ask this question because I need to learn things at a very elementary level on purpose. Because if I get it, if I really get it, I can take it and run with it, right? And so I'm always asking questions. And I teach it in a very plain way to other people as well, too. Now, I remembered, first entering this world of recruiting and then learning about, diversity recruiting. And then you would see all the data, increasing diversity within your workplace. There are all these benefits. There's more innovation. There's more, revenue. There's more all of this, right? But I was that person that was like, but how? How?
Yeah.
And I'm like, nobody's asking this question. Nobody's like, but how does that work? And so I went on this I couldn't stop thinking about that question. And then it led me to this notion of the it factor. And the it factor is our lived experiences. And I tell in this white paper, I talk in terms of lived experience intelligence. Now, if we go back to the story about my father and how my father he had the ceiling of where he could grow in his workplace, which meant that there was only a certain amount of money that was coming into our homes, right? So, that was our living situation. But for me, as a child growing up in the home, there were things that I had access to or didn't have access to. Remember how we talked about access and exposure before, specifically based on money, but also think about this in terms of like identity as well, too.
Right,
That you'll
right.
have access to and be exposed to. There are things you'll be denied access to and exposure to simply because of how you identify. Now, the things that you experience or don't experience, it becomes this lens through which you view the world, right? The things that how you see the world, it shapes how you view the world. And your lived experiences create this intelligence that's undeniable, but it's also presently invisible. So it's like you're getting the benefit of my lived experience intelligence in the workplace, but you're not acknowledging it, so you're not compensating me for it. And that becomes one of the biggest problems. And as an example, have you ever been in a meeting before and you may have had, one of your peers say, I think that this would be a great initiative that we do across the company, and your first thought was, it's not going to go over well. There's going to be some backlash. It may not have been in those words, but some your spidey senses
Yeah.
said to you, because somewhere within your lived experience you knew that this wasn't going to go over well, because you understand the group that they're about to deliver this to, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, that's not, I had that experience on my end, and I actually said it to them that this is not going to go over in the way you think it's going to go over. They're like, no, we've got this. And then there was a lot of backlash around it.
Yes, yes.
So
We can
one of
probably name so many of those stories, by the way, and
right.
we know when it's happening because they're looking to us to maybe like try to affirm the idea, and in
Yeah.
actuality, we're like,
Mhm.
not for this population that I have this common identity with.
Right.
That's not go over too well.
And one of the questions, right, one of the questions that I like to ask people to really understand lived experience intelligence is, what is something that you are more attuned to because of your lived experience intelligence? And so for me, if I walk into a room, I'm more attuned to whose voice isn't being heard because of my lived experience intelligence, and me having to fight to make sure that my voice gets heard. I'm more sensitive to that and I'm paying attention. If I'm around a table, I'm more attuned to whose voice isn't being heard. Have you, if you were to think, and not to put you on the spot, sis.
I have so
But-
many of them. I have so
okay, what would
many
come
of them.
up for you?
So imposter syndrome. I feel like
Oh,
I have this sixth sense where there's something that I gravitate to when I feel like someone is holding back because of imposter syndrome. And
oh,
automatically what I do is start inviting their voice. Little affirmations. You belong here. I'm so glad you're here. Your thought leadership I've been following for a while. I know you have a lot to contribute because inside I can tell either their disposition or maybe how
yes,
they're showing up into that space and
yes,
that place. And because that's been my lived experience.
yes. And
My
that
lived
And that is an intelligence. And if we as employees or job seekers, if we as individuals can own that we have this unique sense of intelligence, because no two life experiences are the same. And if employers can recognize all of this lived experience intelligence within their organizations, if they can tap into it, and if employees can lean into it, imagine the innovation that can now happen.
yeah,
Imagine. So
yes. So I am curious, what's been corporations, different organizations' response to LEQ? Do they understand it first and foremost? Because I feel like that may be an initial hurdle is getting people to fully understand it. And so
yes.
I'm just curious. I would love for you just to socialize. What has your experience been in terms of how people have received it, their level of understanding of it, and embracement of it?
It's a light bulb moment. Well, let me say this first. If anybody wants to get a free white paper around it, it's just livedexperienceintelligence.com. Just download it there and you can get it. But it starts with a light bulb moment, and then the very next question becomes, how do we embed this into the work that we do within our organization? Because as I begin to talk about lived experience intelligence, that very first step, I'm thinking through the lens of recruiting. And so I'll get that question often. And then I'll say, well, one of the first things that you actually need to do is think about who your customers are, the ones that you have, the ones that you want in the future, and really understand where they're coming from. And then as you're interviewing people to come into your organization, share with them who your customers are, then ask them and share with them that you're looking for people that have an intelligence a lived experience intelligence that is relevant to your client base. So you're not asking them about the specific lived experience. You're focused on the intelligence and to start the process there. So to your question, Nika, a long answer to a short question, but it's really about them trying to understand it today. And what we're working on in the background is how do we create a model for you to simply infuse it throughout the organization beyond specifically recruiting?
So I love that because I do think that is going to be a really important next step to be able to actualize this being leveraged within the
Yeah.
context of workplaces. Because you said something a moment ago that gave me pause, which was it's not just your lived experience, is your lived experience intelligence. And I want you to take that a step further and help us to clarify why are you making that distinction?
Oh, thank you for asking this question. If you're hiring someone specifically because of how they identify, it's like placing a period at the end of a sentence that deserves a comma, right?
Yes, the
Because
context here. Oh, yes, 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 yes.
let me say it for the folks in the back of the room. If you're hiring individuals specifically because of how they identify, it's as if you're placing a period at the end of a sentence that deserves a comma. Here's what I mean when I say that. The way in which a person identifies is not the it factor. And what's happening is
Right.
workplaces are checking boxes and saying, okay, well, we have more people of color, we have more women, we have more veterans, and they're putting a period at the end of that sentence. But what I'm trying to say is there is an intelligence. There's
Mhm.
an intelligence because specifically, if we can only talk about one reason, and there's a myriad of reasons, but when you're thinking about marginalization, the way in which we've had to navigate all of these systems of oppression brings this unique skill set to how we think about innovation. Remember how I was talking about I'm this
Yes,
eternal
yes.
optimist and how we've had to navigate so it brings more innovation. It brings in that resilience. If you've grown and you've been conditioned to constantly have to fight your way to success or navigate your way to success, that intelligence is coming with you. And so that's what I mean. It's more than just your identity. It's the intelligence that marginalization has caused you to actually you have.
Yeah, 100%. And while I am intimately familiar with LEQ because you were generous enough to kind of bring me in early on when this was really brewing, and I so
Appreciate
appreciate that. And I've written about it, I've referenced your work in so many different ways, but I wanted you to clarify that because I wanted to make sure this audience was fully aware why that intelligence piece is positioned there very deliberately. Because there are some people who will engage in the work of DEI simply because, okay, yes, you are of this identity, you are of this identity,
Yes,
so got the
yes,
mix, and so I'm good now. But the
yes,
value of it is lost if we're not recognizing why is there power in that
yes,
mix. And
yes.
that's where I wanted to make sure that we were amplifying the intelligence piece. And so this was so well done. It was nothing that was ever on my radar in terms of turning it into an intelligence type of tool. And so I love that you did that. And I'm glad that you're finding some great traction and momentum with organizational leaders really buying into this.
Thank you. And I tell people too that it's almost like when you think about gravity. Gravity's always been there. Someone
Yeah.
just identified it and named it so that more people can say, "Oh, it's gravity that I'm experiencing that's keeping me from floating away." And all I'm doing in this space, specifically in the space of recruiting, is saying it's the intelligence. The intelligence has always been there, but if we can't name it, we can't add value to it. And
Yeah.
so what's happening is we're pouring into organizations with all of this intelligence that's not being valued and we're not being compensated for it. But I'm hopeful that there will be a better world for my sons where they could enter an organization and eventually someone's like, on the job description, it may say something about primary or secondary lived experience intelligence. I'm like, yes, that would be a great success for me.
Absolutely. Okay. So I've fallen down on my job today, and I see my friend Tracy France has her hand raised because usually by now I have invited this audience to think about what questions you have, what curiosities are
Okay.
bubbling up. But my friend Tracy is keeping me on my toes. And so, yes, Tracy, I see that your hand is raised, and I would love to invite you to unmute yourself and present your questions or thoughts. And by the way, while Tracy is getting prepared, if there are others with questions, we will take them. So place them into the chat or use the raise hand feature. Or if you're joining us by LinkedIn Live, go to the comment section and we will try to take as many as we can with the time that we have remaining. Okay, Tracy, you're up.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Nika, for this platform, for this forum, because you introduced me to Jenn Tardy. And I want to say, Jenn, you coached me during a time when I was struggling with imposter syndrome, working for an agency as a chief diversity officer.
I
And
remember.
some of the things that you imparted, I was able to be sustained through that job, uh, get another job, and then end up retiring. So I didn't want to retire prematurely. I was able to retire on my own terms, which I'm now retired. So I just want to thank you both for your wisdom and all the things that you've imparted to me through this platform. That's
Is
it.
anybody trying to make me cry today? Are you setting me
Well,
up, Nika?
it's beautiful. Beautiful. I'm thinking about the sun setting and I'm like, whoa, whoa. Are we going to do this? Yes, because it's new beginnings. We're going to continue to have impact like this, just in different ways, but beautifully spoken. So thank you so much, Tracy, for sharing that.
Thank you. And Tracy, when I saw your name pop up, I was like, I know who Tracy is. And so I am grateful. Thank you for being on here and thank you for that message. I received that. I received that. So I appreciate you.
Toki has shared into the chat, love how this kicks inclusive leadership to another notch. And of course, that's going back to the LEQ conversation. I totally agree, Toki. And we need, and I feel like right now with this anti-DEI movement, we have to be even more careful to create the value through the storytelling. When you talk about LEQ, the way in which I have infused a lot of the intelligence behind lived experience is through helping organizations to embed a storytelling culture. Because that is
Yeah,
where I feel like a lot of the intelligence of lived experiences can show forth in a way that creates empathy, humanizes people, makes people more relatable, it deepens compassion, and it just really helps to bridge the divide that difference can sometimes create. And so yeah, I totally agree, Toki. I think that we have to be creative and innovative and strategic about how in which we're now talking about the value of diversity, equity, and inclusion and what the collective brings when they come together in a really effective way.
I love that. I love that. And I love the storytelling as well too. And it's almost like storytelling in a way through the lens of just what you're attuned to, like what you're more sensitive to, helping people to see the because they see the human in you, helping to use your storytelling so they can see the humanity in all of the other clients that you're working to
Absolutely.
serve.
Yeah. I am on this charge of humanizing how we work and how we live, how we work and how we live. And the reason that I place so much emphasis on the how we live is because we know that we need it in the workplace. But I think that we've been so conditioned to it not being centered in the workplace that even when we show up for ourselves, we sometimes won't even see ourselves as being humans, but as machines, which is why we have a hard time resting and slowing down. And because we think about we have to produce, produce, produce instead of just being. There's a reason we are human beings, right?
I know, I know, I know. I agree. I think that one of a group of people who stay on my heart today are the nurturers, people who are just naturally nurturing. Because my very next question is, well, who's nurturing you when everybody's pulling at you? Everybody's pulling at you. Who's nurturing you? And so I think about that because they're giving so much of themselves to the homes, to the communities, to the workplaces, just because of how natural nurturing is. And so, a lot of the work that I'm actually personally also integrating, it's really a focus on the nurturers and making sure that they get proper nurturing as well too. I know
Ooh, I
that's a
love
whole
that.
nother
It's a
story, but
whole nother story and conversation, but I'm glad that you're lifting it because it is necessary. Just in my
yeah.
boundless coaching group yesterday evening, one of the lovely women who are part of that community said that she is a nurturer, and she talked about
Mhm.
how the reason that the boundless community has been so useful for her is because she is not used to that reciprocity. She's always holding
Mm.
space for others. So just to be able to
Yes,
show up and know that space will be held for her and she will be
definitely.
supported has been tremendous. And so you're right. Those nurturers, they need us. Do not let those who appear to be so strong because they're always giving, giving, giving to send the message that they don't need to be supported as well. So thank you for
Check
that.
on your strong friends.
Check on your strong
Check on
friends.
your strong friends. Yes.
Okay, Linroy, I see your question. Given the current state of DEI, especially in light of shifting priorities around diversity recruiting, what types of training and consulting are companies most often seeking today? Or there particular trends or approaches that you're seeing gain momentum?
Mm. And I may need your help answering this question as well, Dr. White. And I need to do a better job of, because this is how you can
No,
tell we have a lot of conversations outside of here.
we are definitely on the first name basis, sis. Oh,
So, okay, I'll kick it off, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well too. Um, I'm seeing a lot of, can we deliver training without calling it diversity, equity, and inclusion? Or can we just talk about inclusion? And where my mind is, and a lot of the ways in which I speak in this book too, as I'm talking to people and teaching people, is let's talk in terms of barriers. Let's take this down to, in a foundational way. Let's talk about barriers. What barriers are preventing you and your organization from having top talent? And how do we identify those barriers and how do we remove them? So I think the language is shifting. And I don't, like I said in an article, I don't care if we change the name from DEI to something else. I just care that the work continues.
yeah.
What do
Yeah,
you
I
think?
agree with you. I don't know if there's much more I can add to that. I mean, here's the bottom line. EEOC still exists. You know? So
That part.
let's not let that fall by the wayside. Keep emphasizing, equal opportunity. And I think also it's about conscious leadership. So for your hiring managers, for your recruiters, how are you positioning them to think beyond just some of the traditional, straightforward go-to strategies for being able to build up diverse candidates, right?
Yeah.
How are they establishing and nurturing networks with other communities of people and professionals that they want to be in their consideration set? So I don't want us to get stuck on because we are in this anti-DEI movement that
Yeah.
still, to Jen's point, that the work and the innovative strategies and creativity should not be in full force. In fact, we need it in full force right now, even more so than ever. But yeah, it may be harder, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible right now. So
Definitely.
don't give
Yes.
up. Yeah.
And one other thing that I'll add to that too is that when we get into seasons of just things being very extreme, when this pendulum swings to this extreme space of anti-DEI, when seasons change, it forces that pendulum to swing in.
Have to
Okay,
go back the other
yes.
direction.
And
Yeah.
and this is again my eternal optimism, and I know I can be annoying, but it's like this is genuinely creating a groundswell, and I'm very interested to see what's on the other side of all of this,
I
of all
agree.
this contention and stuff. So
Yeah, I agree. The pendulum is going to swing
it
back in the other
has
direction.
to.
It really is. And so for those of us who can weather the storm, remain
Yeah.
hopeful, remain optimist, and to just continue to hone our craft with creativity and innovation, I think we're going to be able to find ourselves being well served when um, the reckoning of the implications, the negative implications and consequences are really going to show forth in a way that more people are going to realize that we were not better off by having this anti-DEI movement. So,
All right.
okay. So we have 2 minutes left, and I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to first and foremost thank you for returning 3, 4 times. I don't know the count, but I'm just so glad we're in community with each other. Sis, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate your work. We're going to again before we close out share Jen's book. We've shared her website. We've shared it's already in the chat. We've shared her LinkedIn. Definitely make sure that also you pull down the link to the LEQ. I call them thought papers. I'm trying to break some of the patterns, right? But I call them thought papers instead of white papers. But I would love for you all to make sure that you're getting resource because it really is rich. I want to let you, Jenn, lead us out with whatever thoughts and remarks that you're having a lot of passion and energy for that you did not get to socialize today. And so before I release you, I just want to say thank you to this community for showing up. And if this has been a good experience for you and the content has been useful, then share it out with someone else in your network. So, Jenn.
I just want to leave you with a quote that I have in the last chapter of the book where I said, if history was written by the victors, the future is here for the visionaries, right? So the people who won the wars wrote our history the way they wanted to write it. But the people in this room, we're the visionaries, and we have the opportunity to create what we want to see in the future. So keep that in mind. Thank you, Nika.
Well said. I hope to see you all next week for our final Intentional Conversations podcast. Let's make it a big one. Let's make it a big one. Tell all your friends and family. All righty. Thank you so very much. Have a great weekend.
Bye.